What's up all you symbiotic dudes and dudettes, Toy Shiz here, and I got a really quick review for you today. We're going to be talking all about the brand new Venom movie that just came out. Finally got to see it last night, and I'm going to be quite honest with you. I thought the movie was rad, and here's why, and don't hate me too much just yet. I know a lot of people were like, what? Come on, there's no way. Well, I did see a lot of the reviews, and I had a lot of people spoil things for me. Thank you very much. Can you guys not do that? I mean, honestly, you get 2 weeks before you can actually post or say anything. Or how about this? Say, hey, have you seen the Venom movie? Oh, you haven't? Well, then I don't want to say that this particular thing happens. And that's not how you lead the conversation, because I read it and I'm like, are you kidding me? Now I know what happened. So anyways, I just ask you, with spoilers and everything, don't be that person. Just keep it light and be like, you know what? Have you seen the movie? If not, okay, cool. We'll talk about it once you have. Anyways, saw it last night. Had a little bit of time to marinate on it. I did say on my Instagram, I thought it was rad. It's so rad, it's bad. And it's so bad, it's rad. And if you get me in that sense, you kind of know exactly. So, being a Spider-Man comic nerd that I am, okay, I know that Spider-Man is not going to play any part in this movie. So going into this movie, I turned my comic book brain off and I was like, I'm going to see if I enjoy this just in terms of story. I know that Spider-Man and a lot of other events like Secret Wars play a heavy integral element to how we get to Venom. None of that stuff's going to be in it. So let's see what they can do. And honestly, if this movie came out in the 90s, people would have been losing their friggin' minds. This thing was so 90s, so campy, so ridiculously dumb and awesome that it was cool. And I respect it for that. This ain't no brain buster of a movie, okay? This is the character gets this character, and they have to fight the bad character. And that's exactly how the movie goes. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not necessarily like a great thing. So I'm hoping that they're, with the sequel, which there is going to be a sequel, you know, that they do a lot more with it and they have a little bit more expansion to it. A lot of people were upset that they went from a rated R movie supposedly to a PG-13. Now, with the editing in this movie, you can totally tell it was supposed to be rated R, okay? They even drop an F-bomb in there. Totally, like, out of left field. I was like, what? Like, why? Why? You could have kept it without that. It just adds to, like, the shock. Like, wait, that just totally took me out of the movie. Why would Venom... Eddie Brock, why would they say that? That was weird. So you could totally tell the editing is very choppy. You could tell that the corporate machine got to this movie and was like, you know what? We totally need to make this accessible to everybody who likes Spider-Man, which is weird because Spider-Man's not part of the movie. So why would you think that? I'm one of those people, right? Well, I don't have a problem with PG-13, but when you could tell that it was supposed to be R and then it make it PG-13, that's what's weird to me. Venom is not an R-rated character. He's not Deadpool. He's not Wolverine. Those characters fit more in the rated R. Venom has always been like he kills people. He eats their heads, their brains, and all that kind of stuff. But it's always like off screen, and it's done in a way where you have to kind of think about it more than really wanting to see it. And I agree with that. And they kind of did that with this movie as well. But it was a little bit off-putting because, like in one scene in particular at the very end, you don't know if he eats the guy's head or he eats the whole guy. I'm thinking, from what happens, I'm thinking he eats the whole guy because there's no body when he turns around and all that kind of stuff. So that was a little weird, and then they don't really discuss it or talk about it after that. But again, Sony, I don't know why you guys don't understand with stop showing us the end credits scene, or I'm sorry, just the end scene of any movie like Spider-Man 2. Quit putting that scene in the trailers. Because at the end of Venom, I was like, oh, they're walking into the thing. And I go, wait, the most integral part that they kept showing hasn't been in the movie yet. And they alluded to it in one part at the very beginning. And so I was like, well, that's going to be the ending of the movie. So I already called the very actual ending of the movie without having seen it. And that's so dumb. Why would you do that? Like, I know it's a good, cool scene, but I'm going to be honest with you, it was cooler in the trailer than it was like in the movie. It chopped it up and it was odd. It was very odd. Also, I noticed that you made Venom say turd a little bit, easier to understand, because in the trailer I was like, what did he just say? And then I know that it's from the actual comic. Like, it's from Venom when he was, talking and stuff like that. But it didn't sound right. So they kind of did like a whole Tom Hardy Bane thing where they cleared up the voice. So starting off the movie, it starts weird. You go from the ship that's going to crash land, and you could kind of tell, I feel like the directors and the producers and all that stuff of this movie liked the original John Semper Jr. Spider-Man 90s cartoon, specifically the Alien Costume Saga 3-parter, because I was watching this movie, I was like, that reminds me of the cartoon. That reminds me of this, from that episode, from this episode, second, third parts, all that kind of stuff. Eddie Brock has always been into lifting weights and stuff. There's even a nod to that in the movie, which I thought was cool. There's a nod to him being from the Daily Globe. There's a nod to him living in New York, getting kicked out of New York, and all that kind of stuff. Also, in the beginning, the symbiotes crash land. So you don't really see what they do. It's an odd thing. It's like you see space, and then you see a ship, and you're like, okay, well, this world is very futuristic technology, but it's not. It's comic booky. We'll just say that. Like, I'm not going to nitpick it too much. The ship crashes from outer space, and everyone seems to be not completely obliterated, torn to pieces, all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of funny. And they're watching this live feed, and one of the guys goes, hey, wait, that's Jameson. And you're like, oh, that's John Jameson, J. Jonah Jameson's son. That's cool. I wonder if J. Jonah Jameson's going to show up, or they're going to do more with John Jameson, because he's kind of a big character in the Spider-Man universe, a man-wolf, and all that kind of stuff. And then he dies, and like, I don't know why. That's when my comic book brain kept wanting to come back and be like, hey, that's not right, And then you're thinking like, oh man, J. Jonah Jameson's son just died. That sucks, right? That's why it's you can have any other character. Why make it John Jameson? You're just gonna kill him off. It doesn't work, and it doesn't fit the character, and it just makes people's brains go explodey. They do this thing where the symbiotes crash. One of them latches onto a person, and they're in China, which is a super weird scene, I gotta say. But I was like, are these people like a police militia, or do they just care that this guy got killed, or why do they have guns? It's a totally random scene. And this symbiote attached person looks at the Life Foundation part on a jacket or on a thing. She has like a little patch or something like that, and knows to go to the Life Foundation, which they're in China, and they got to go to San Francisco. And then it's literally says, like, after Eddie Brock does something, so you think all this stuff is happening in one linear thing, and then Eddie Brock screws up royally. That's how it gets the story kind of going. And it says 6 months later. So that would mean that the person in China has been trying to get to San Francisco for 6 months, which is... and they're wearing the same clothes. It's bizarre. It's a weird edit, and again, if you just turn your brain off and go, okay, but movies, if you're listening to me, I let it go with the Fallen Kingdom and all that stuff, but man, movies, thinking people are dumb nowadays, man. Like that, they're thinking like, oh, they're not going to notice. Yeah, we still like movies. Like, we're going to notice stuff like this. So you really got to start paying attention and stop with the rushing of movies. Like, take your time, do it right. Venom made a whole heck of a lot of money, so there's going to be a sequel. Then I'll talk about more of that in just a second. But it's just one of those things where, it's weird. You know what I mean? So it's let's just say this first off the bat. There's no Spider-Man element to Venom, and that's not a problem for me. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be totally cool with that. I knew that going in. I knew he's got nothing to do with Spider-Man. Nothing. Not at all. And that's actually a good thing, because I feel like if Spider-Man would have been attached to this movie and thrown in somehow, that would have just been detrimental. The other funny thing is that I believe I was talking to Talker Art at STCC, and he had said to me, he's like, you know what? I heard with this Venom movie, like, he's barely in it. And it's still kind of the case. Venom doesn't show up until about the 52, 53 minute mark. And that was weird to me. Like, he's there, like, you see him talking to Brock and stuff, but he actually doesn't really become Venom until after, like, the most drawn out, just agonizing chase sequence, to where if you're sitting there watching, like, an exciting, quote-unquote, chase sequence, and it keeps going, and my initial thought was, where are the police? Like, why aren't the police stopping this or anything? Eddie Brock gets chased by, like, the worst militia group ever from the Life Foundation. And it's a way for them to kind of show off, I guess, what Venom can do and have fun with it, or just give some more time to the movie, because it goes on forever. They're throwing, like, drone bombs at him and sonic shockers and running into him. And the other problem is that, again, because of the trailer, we know exactly how this car chase is going to end. And I kept thinking, like, okay, when's he going to hit a car? Or when's this car going to ram into him, send him flying? He's going to break all his bones. He's going to be sitting there and Venom takes over. And then he sits up and then he's officially Venom. And that's like the big reveal. And then I was like, of course, the tongue comes out. There it is. And he's going to lick the guy's face. Well, that's what's going on. So it's too much letting us know shot for shot and then going along with the movie. I know it's really hard, especially with marketing these days, but you got to keep us in a sense of disbelief and being like, oh, I'm excited. Like, I'm not putting two and two together while I'm watching this movie. Another weird thing is that Eddie Brock, it takes so long for him after getting the symbiote to realize that he has Venom. He keeps thinking he's sick. And it's kind of funny. He does like this thing where he keeps trying to eat, and they changed a little bit, where the symbiote will actually eat the host if they don't eat. So it's like a thing of symbiosis, I guess. So it worked for the context of the story in this version of Venom. I had no problem with it. It's kind of funny. It's kind of exciting. It's kind of like, okay, that's a new twist. I dig it. But it turns into like this black horror movie buddy cop kind of thing where these two characters, they seem like they're old like frat friends or something like that. And it works, but it's also like, again, being like, you know, one of the Spider-Man people, I'm like, the reason that they're together in the first place because they both hate Spider-Man, and that's the motivation. So for what they did with it, it works, you know. And I love the banter between Brock and Venom. I thought that was fun. Venom's plan is really odd. Like, he's like, oh, hey, totally, just so you know, I'm just using you, and I'm gonna like seriously kill you once the end of it. And Eddie Brock's like, whatever, like that's cool. And then they never really go back to that. And honestly, one of my favorite shots, one of the most beautiful shots, I think, of the movie, where I was like, you know what, I'm actually really enjoying this movie. For as dumb as it is, I'm actually enjoying this, is when they go up the side of the building and Venom gets to the top and he looks like Venom. The CGI looks pretty good. And he looks out over the city and he's like, I like this place. Like, this is cool. And I thought, that's kind of an oddly beautiful moment in this movie where, as opposed to just being all about action and biting people's heads off and alien symbiotes and stuff like that, I was like, I like this little subtle nod and calm for like a split second. I like that. I thought that was very, very cool. So again, they linger a little bit too much with side characters. Like, he has this conversation with a homeless lady, and then they see this dog, and then they see like other characters where you're like, why are they wasting so much time to show us this? And the first one I was like, she's gonna come back somehow, and she does, and the dog comes back somehow, and like all this stuff. So they spend too much. The exposition is very heavy. In one scene in particular where they're talking Anne Wang, which I actually really liked. Michelle Williams. By the way, I liked everybody in this movie. I liked Tom Hardy. I liked Michelle Williams. I liked Carlton Drake's character. What's his name? Bodhi Rook from Rogue One. You know, I thought they all did a great job. It's great acting. They just weren't given a lot of material to work with because it looks very rushed and everything else. But again, for what they did, I did dig the movie. So it's an expositional scene, and people don't talk like this, and that's why it kind of took me out. I was like, oh, like that, nobody's like, you know, it's like, oh, Eddie, I can't believe what happened to you in New York. And he's like, yeah, I can't believe I got kicked out of New York for blah, blah, blah. And then blah, blah, blah happened, and she's like, I know, but it's been like 6 years since that, you know what I mean? It's like one of those things where people who already know about events don't talk about events in that situation. So that's all I'm really saying. This is like Elliot meets E.T. for grown-ups. If I can be put on the DVD box, that'll be my quote. Elliot and E.T. for grown-ups. Also, they do this thing with the Riot Symbiote where it jumps between hosts and everything, and at one point it jumps onto a little girl, and you're like, well, wait, when it jumps off a host, it kills the host, and you're like, oh man, that's cold, you know? Like, dang. Like, and that's why another thing where you think that this movie was supposed to be R, and they cut it for PG-13, you know, because that kind of stuff where you kind of leave these elements in there and you're like, well, wait a minute, that's kind of sort of weird. Anyways, another thing with the Carlton Drake character, they keep talking about like, man, this dude's so cool, like stop being so awesome, and he's like the coolest scientist person to make stuff, and he's like a child genius and all that stuff, and we never see anything regarding that, which is really funny to me. He's always just a super evil scientist dude that's stuck in his laboratory. he ends up getting the Riot Symbiote, and then they totally disregard like everything they kind of set up as far as what you need to do to be a suitable host for a symbiote, and he just gets it, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that's cool, I guess. Now he has the Riot Symbiote. Shut my brain off. Don't really care. So he's totally got it. They have She-Venom shows up at one point, and it was a lot of fun. I was so dumb, but it was a lot of fun because Venom was doing Venom things. The CGI at the end was hilariously bad, but they're like tearing at each other, ripping each other. This was like Michael Bay directs Venom. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. It's one of those things where it's got the look of Venom, the name of Venom, but it has nothing to do with Venom other than he looks like the dude that he's supposed to look like with the tongue coming out. That's really pretty much it. You know, I liked it. It was cool. So in that regards, I can definitely recommend it. The end credits scene by far was like one of my favorite things because of how like Joel Schumacher or Tim Burton it was. Eddie Brock goes to maximum security prison. The security guard's like, hey, Red, you got a visitor, and he's going to visit this secret prisoner. And of course, who else is it going to be? It's Cletus Cassidy. And it's Woody Harrelson in this like ridiculously bad, but it's so cool wig, you know? And he's got this red hair. And I was like, you know what? That's what the hair would look like. That's drawn from the comics if this was real life. So it works. Like, I'm totally down for it. And it's really cool because they do this like Hannibal Lecter banter back and forth. And Woody Harrelson's like, you know, I'm going to get out of here, Eddie. And when I do, and he like looks at the camera and he's just like it's almost like they zoom in and like, he goes, there's going to be carnage. And I'm like, the 5-year-old, inner 5-year-old in me was like, yes, like let's see that right now. So what I think is going to happen is that maybe somehow the Riot Symbiote survives. And because they make a mention that the Riot can do all these kind of projectiles and create weapons and do all that kind of stuff. So maybe he survived, maybe he got mutated, something like that, and becomes the Carnage symbiote after latching onto, you know, Cletus Cassidy. Maybe the red hair turns the symbiote red. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know. I don't think Venom's going to spawn or do anything like that. I think they should keep it just like that. It has nothing to do with Spider-Man, nothing to do with Venom in that sense. So you wouldn't get the Carnage in that same exact way. So leave it alone. Don't mess with that lore. Create something new like he did with Venom. And let's see it. Let's do it. New York Comic Con had a really cool spoiler, and shout out to Emergency Awesome on YouTube. I love their channel. Go and watch him. He is awesome for doing recaps. New York Comic Con did this like really cool spoilery thing, but nobody really knew about it because they did it so nonchalant, where they posted the notebook that Eddie Brock takes with him to go see Cletus Cassidy. It has all the notes that he took and all the horrible things that Eddie Brock has written down, and they just posted it everywhere. So it kind of gives a subtle sort of nod to being like, hey, guess what? Venom made a whole heck of a lot of money this weekend, so let's do Venom 2, and it's probably going to have Carnage in it. So if you want to call it Venom Maximum Carnage, or screw it, just call it Maximum Carnage, I'd lose my mind. I think that would be crazy. I think that would be awesome. Make sure it's got Shriek in it, and the Demogoblin and Doppelganger and Carrion, and we're set. I'm sure they'll do each and every one of those characters, hands down. Yeah, right. Anyways, thank you guys for listening to my ramblings on the Venom movie. I sincerely enjoyed it. It's so bad. It was rad. That's just all I'm going to say. So, if you liked the review, hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can find out whenever I post more videos just like this one. If you guys want to ever talk toys or talk movies, make sure to email me, toyshiz@gmail.com. And also you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, all the great social medias, and I'll make it easy on you. Just follow me at toyshiz. I very much appreciate it all again. I hope you guys have a great time watching this movie, and if you don't, that's what makes it fun to kind of talk about movies. You either like it or you don't, and we can talk about it till we're both driven into the ground. As always, drink some great coffee, eat some great food, but most importantly, find some fantastic action figures or watch some amazing movies. May or may not be, unlike Venom. I don't really know. And when you do, let me know what you found or watched. I'll talk to you guys soon. Adios.